Imagine you are out for a night of fun, just trying to enjoy yourself, when someone grabs you and says you are a criminal. You try to tell them they have the wrong person, but they do not care. This is exactly what happened to a man who kept saying, "I'm not Mike. I do not know anything about a guy named Mike." Even though he was telling the truth, a computer program that looks at faces said he was a perfect match. 100%. This computer program told the casino staff that this man was someone who had been banned from the building before. Because of what the computer said, the security guards held him there against his will. Then, the police came and took him away in handcuffs. He ended up in a cold jail cell, even though his own driver's license showed he was not the person the computer thought he was. It is scary to think that the police would believe a computer more than a real piece of paper from the government. I am someone who cares deeply about your rights, and in this talk, I want to help you understand a few things. First, we will look at how these computer programs that scan faces often make big mistakes in the real world. Second, we will talk about the rules of our country, called the Constitution, and how they are supposed to protect you from being arrested for no good reason. Third, we will explore why this is still happening today, and what you can do to make sure you do not end up in the same sad situation as this man who was caught in a computer mistake. Back in the month of September in 2023, a place called the Peppermill Casino in the city of Reno was using this special software that scans faces. The computer looked at a man named Jason Killinger and told the guards he was someone who had broken the rules there before. The security people said the computer was totally sure about it, but Mr. Killinger promised them they were wrong. He even showed them his ID to prove who he was. Sadly, the police did not listen to him. They chose to trust the machine instead of the man standing right in front of them. These face-scanning tools are starting to turn our everyday world into a place where we are always being watched, like we are in a never-ending police lineup. You can find them in casinos, grocery stores, big sports stadiums, and even apartment buildings. All it takes is a private camera and some of this software to get a person arrested by mistake. There is a famous legal case called Katz versus United States, where the highest court in the land said that people should be able to feel private when they are out in public. It means the police are not supposed to use electronic eyes to spy on you without a very good reason. That makes a lot of sense, right? We should all feel safe from being watched by the government. But things get complicated when a private business, like a casino, is the one doing the spying and then just handing that information over to the police. The top court has not yet made a final rule about this specific problem. This means the police are working in a bit of a messy area where the rules are not clear. Let us look closer at what happened to Mr. Killinger. The security guards told the police they had an alert about a person who had been kicked out before. They said they talked to the man, but he insisted he was not the right guy. They asked the police to help them figure out if it was really him. There's a little secret about the law that many people forget. A casino is private property, just like someone's house. There's another rule called the Fourth Amendment that stops the government from searching you without a reason. In a case called Carpenter versus United States, the High Court said the police cannot use GPS to track where you go for a long time without a special permission paper called a warrant. But right now, it is still legal for a bunch of cameras to use face scanning to follow you around. This is a big problem because the casino can use any technology they want to track you on their own land. They were allowed to hold Mr. Killinger just because their computer told them to. But once the police arrive, the situation changes because now the government is involved. The police need a very strong reason to take someone to jail. One of the officers asked if the man had a different ID or more stuff in his pockets. The security guard said their own system showed he was the banned guy, even though the official police system showed he was exactly who he said he was on his ID. The man, Mr. Killinger, was very upset. He told the officer his name and explained that he drives big trucks for a delivery company called UPS. He even showed them his special work socks to prove he was telling the truth. He was in a lot of pain because the handcuffs were too tight on his shoulders, but the officer told him he had to keep sitting there. The officer looked at the ID from the computer, and the ID the man gave them, and said, "It was very weird. This part makes me very frustrated. The computer said it was him, so they acted like it was a total fact. But here's the truth you need to know. Face scanning software never really knows for sure who someone is. It only gives a score of how similar two people look. Even if the score is very high, the people who make the software say it is never a perfect match. It is just a guess based on math. When the casino says it is a 100% match, they are just using fancy words to sell their product. The technology is not perfect. It works by taking one face and comparing it to millions of other faces in a big list. If you look at enough faces, you are going to find two that look a lot alike eventually. This is different from how you unlock your phone with your face. Your phone only has to compare you to one person, you. But when a computer compares you to millions of people, it makes mistakes and picks the wrong person quite often. Almost everyone has someone out there in the world who looks just like them, a doppelganger. If you put millions of people into a computer, it is bound to mix people up. These computer guesses should only be used as a tiny hint, not as the final answer. Until the police realize this, innocent people will keep going to jail by mistake. In this case, the guards looked at Mr. Killinger's real ID and compared it to a photo they had from before. They started to think maybe the computer was right, not because the ID was fake, but just because they trusted the machine more than their own eyes. Real life is messy. Things like the light in the room, the way the camera is tilted, and the quality of the picture can all trick the computer. If the old photo was taken on a different day with different lights, the computer can easily get it wrong. The computer can also have a harder time with people of different ages or skin colors depending on how it was taught to recognize faces. Two people who look a little bit alike can be seen as a perfect match much easier than you might think. Many experts have been shouting about this for a long time. For example, in the year 2025, a man named Travis Williams was arrested in New York for something he never did. The computer said he was the guy, even though Travis was much taller and much heavier than the real criminal. The only thing they had in common was their skin color and their hairstyle. Even the best systems that claim to be right almost all the time will still point the finger at innocent people. If a computer looks at 1,000 people and gets 99% right, it still means 10 innocent people are being called criminals. That is not okay if you are one of those 10 people. Back at the casino, the guards were talking about how their new system was telling them the match was perfect. They even said they had another camera that saw him and was totally sure. The officer seemed to think the software was amazing and couldn't be wrong. He even thought the computer could tell the difference between identical twins. That is very worrying. The law says that the police should look at everything, the ID, the person's face, the way they are acting, before they decide to arrest someone. They shouldn't just listen to one computer program. The computer should be the start of the search, not the end of it. The police should have done a real investigation. They should have looked at his government ID and checked his story. But they skipped those steps. This happens way too often. There was another man named Robert Williams in Detroit. Someone stole from a store and a blurry camera picture was put into a computer. The system picked out Robert's old driver's license photo. He was arrested right in front of his family and had to stay in jail for hours, even though he was completely innocent. This is what happens when people treat a computer's guess as if it were a solid fact. The officer in the casino called his office to try and figure things out. He told them he had a strange situation with a man who might be using a fake name. He asked them to check 2 different names and see what the pictures looked like. The officer thought it was super weird that the pictures looked so much alike. He started to believe that the man was just one person who had 2 different IDs. This is where things get really bad for our rights. The officer didn't have a real reason to arrest him. He just had a feeling. He even saw that both of the man's IDs were real and legal. Instead of realizing the computer made a mistake, the officer tried to change the facts to match what the computer said. That is not how the law is supposed to work. Mr. Killinger had no way to argue with the computer in that moment. He just had to sit there and be arrested. The officer told his office that the man had 2 different IDs with different names, but they looked like the same guy. He even noticed a small difference, like a little bit of hair on his chin, but he still thought they were the same. He decided that since the man was acting suspicious, he would just arrest him and let the jailers figure it out with fingerprints. This is a pattern I see a lot. Once a computer flags you, everything you do looks guilty to the police. If you try to walk away, they say you are running. If you say you're innocent, they say you're being difficult. Even when your ID is perfect, they think you have a secret friend at the DMV who gave you a fake one. They couldn't even imagine that the computer was wrong or that 2 people could just look similar. The officer told Mr. Killinger he was going to jail because he couldn't be sure who he was. Mr. Killinger was shocked. He had never been arrested in his entire life. The officer admitted that maybe there was a doppelganger, but he said his hands were tied because the fancy computer said it was a match. Mr. Killinger offered to show a pay stub from his job to prove his name, and he had more papers in his car, like his insurance and his work union card. But the officer didn't want to see any of it. He said only fingerprints would solve it. It is so sad to see how much people trust these machines. The officer even said they use these systems to catch very bad criminals, so he thought they were very reliable. But Mr. Killinger knew he wasn't that guy. He was so frustrated that the security guards were acting like robots instead of using their own heads to think. This whole mess is a problem with what we call due process. This means you are supposed to get a fair chance to defend yourself. But how can you defend yourself against a computer when nobody can explain how it made its choice or how often it makes mistakes? The police are not allowed to stop thinking and just let a machine make their decisions for them. Once they put you in jail, they are supposed to have a very good reason. But with these systems, the innocent person has to do all the work to prove they are good. This does not just happen in casinos. In the city of New Orleans, the police used a face scanning system in secret for almost 2 years. They had hundreds of cameras watching people as they walked down the street. If the computer thought it saw someone on a list, it would tell an officer where they were. They didn't ask a judge for permission first. They didn't tell the people they were watching. And they didn't even put it in their official reports. This was all happening, even though the city had a law that said they weren't allowed to do it. The police found a sneaky way around the law by paying a private company to do it for them. When people finally found out, the city stopped the program, but for 2 years, everyone was being watched without knowing it. They were just like Mr. Killinger, arrested because a computer said so. Eventually, the officer started to realize he might have made a mistake. After talking to Mr. Killinger more, he began to believe him a little bit, but even then, he still felt like the computer was probably right. Mr. Killinger finally proved who he was, but he should not have had to go to jail to do it. He spent a whole day in a cell. His shoulders were hurt from the handcuffs and his wrists were bruised. Now, even though he did nothing wrong, he has an arrest record that he has to try to get erased. I do not blame him for wanting to sue the officers for what they did to him. So, what can you do to keep your family safe from this? First, try to put fewer pictures of your face online. Make your social media accounts private and don't let just anyone see your photos. Companies use those public photos to teach their computers. Second, if you are in a place with lots of cameras, you can wear things like special sunglasses that block certain kinds of light, or hats that make it hard for the camera to see your face clearly. Third, if a business asks if they can scan your face, say no if you can. If security guards ever stop you because a computer flagged you, stay very calm. Ask if you are allowed to leave. Ask them to look at your real ID and talk to a manager if the guard won't listen. If they hurt you or won't let you go, write down their names so you can talk to a lawyer later. If the police show up, remember that you have the right to stay silent. You do not have to answer their questions without a lawyer there to help you. The real fix for this problem is making better laws. We need the government to be honest about when they use these computers. We need laws that say a computer match is not enough reason to arrest someone. We also need the highest court to rule that spying on our faces is a violation of our privacy. The police are also using other new tools to try and see through the walls of people's homes. We need to stay informed and protect our homes from these electronic eyes. I will keep sharing stories like this so we can all stand up for our rights and keep our families safe in this changing world.